everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Read Right to Left podcast. I am G from Simply G, joined by my always wonderful co-host Ray from Whimsical Pictures.
Hello, everyone.
And today it is June, it's Pride Month, and for this month we are going to be talking about LGBT manga in celebration of that. So hopefully you've sent in your questions. We will answer them to the best of our ability. Thank you as always for that. We did get some wonderful questions. Before we do get into the podcast today, we wanted to talk a little bit about sort of the current situation of the world. Things are not wonderful right now. There's Black Lives Matter protests all across the world. There's a lot of places you can donate, and we will be including a whole range of links for various causes that are very important to us in the description below. Everything that can be contributed, no matter how small, is valued and will be put towards good cause. I think if you've been listening to our show for a while, you'll know that this is something that we're very passionate about. These are issues that are not inherently political. They're definitely like a human rights thing, and everyone should, support what's going on in the world and how we're trying to change the world. So Ray will leave them in the description below. Please donate if possible, and make sure you keep yourself educated. Make sure you keep yourself aware of what's going on in the world and informed.
So like G said, I think both of us are fully in support of the protests and the movement that's happening right now. I'm doing my best to stay updated from here on the other side of the world. There are protests going on in Tokyo.
Here in Perth. We had one last week, and I'm sure many others since.
Yeah, so, this movement isn't something that's going to be done in a couple weeks. We're in it for the long haul. I wish I could be on the streets back in America right now with a lot of my friends, a lot of my community, but, at the very least, donating the money I can, and just hopefully pointing you guys towards some organizations that I think are good, trustworthy, and particularly provide very necessary services to trans people of color and Black trans women in particular during this Pride Month. So, check out the description for that stuff. Support your local Black Lives Matter chapters. Do not be donating your money to the National Black Lives Matter Association. Be donating your money, your time to the local chapters. They are the ones who are doing the work. So,
yes.
Yeah. But we're here to help take your minds off that a little bit and, celebrate LGBT manga, LGBT people in general, and hopefully give you guys some good manga recommendations for Pride Month.
Yes. So, I think today we're going to be talking about 3 different categories of titles. The first is going to be LGBT titles that are completely focused on the LGBT experience, and gender identity, sexuality is sort of the main focus of those works. A lot of them, if not most of them, are Own Voices works. And those are what I think people think of quintessentially when you say LGBT manga in this context. The second category is going to be about series that feature LGBT characters but aren't inherently about their identity, their sexuality, things like that, but it is still it does still have those aspects within the story. Some of these will fall under the more recognizable, like Yuri and BL demographics. Others won't. So you get a little bit of a mix there. And finally, the third category are stories that do have that are LGBT focused or do feature LGBT characters, but there are caveats to the story that does prevent it from being like a truly like 100% recommendation, but still worth reading. So some of the titles that we've even talked about on this show before will also be there. And again, these titles are worth reading, but not necessarily for the LGBT representation within them. And then hopefully, finally, we will get to your questions. And yeah, so...
Yeah. So, I feel like we've definitely been seeing a bit of a trend in like LGBT titles, specifically titles that are primarily about LGBTQ themes, in the vein of Our Dreams at Dusk, coming out lately, particularly from Seven Seas, but also from other publishers.
Yeah.
I think that they've definitely kind of caught on to the really thirst for titles like this kind of representation in the Western manga market, as well as the Japanese market. I mean, we see more of these titles just like in general popping up, which is great.
Yeah, I think the fact that you know, it has for a very long time been a market that hasn't been catered to for manga fans for a long time. Up until recently, sort of the only LGBT representation you could get was through like BL and Yuri, which aren't or like, always brilliant.
You know, yeah. Or like, you know, Noriko or something. Like characters that are a little outdated in their portrayal.
It's interesting to see how that shifted. I think there's definitely been more of it thanks to just social change through gay marriage and wider acceptance of the LGBT movement over the last 5-10 years. And we see that reflected in our media. And of course, Japan is no stranger to this. It's not, you know, they're not cut off from the world.
You know, there's a lot of ways that the LGBTQ movement is really just getting started over here, I think. But, you know, there's also a lot of ways in which it is, you know, just as progressed as in the West. I took a picture the other day because I sit across from, like, one of the PTA ladies who, like, hands out flyers for various things. And, you know, she had a stack of flyers that was from our local LGBTQ helpline to be passed out to students at this elementary school, which, you know, it's always nice to see stuff like that. I was reading through it, and, you know, the information on it was very much up to date with kind of what's common knowledge within the LGBTQ community these days about, you know, not outing someone, even if they've come out to you, that doesn't mean they've come out to other people, about, like, not necessarily having to experience dysphoria to be trans.
Yeah.
You know, different things like that, you know, are nice to see. And I just want to, like, point out that, you know, I feel like we always say, like, you know, there's this movement happening in Japan right now, and, like, stupid people, frankly, are like, no, that's just a few extremists, you know, my perfect, you know, conservative utopia Japan hates gay people as much as I do.
It's just your SJW agenda ruining anime for me.
Ruining
like,
anime. No, Japan's moving forward as well in its own way, and there is certainly a very active and vocal LGBTQ population over here as anywhere. So I just thought I'd give that like very like concrete example as like, yes, it's here too. Duh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you see that reflected in manga as well, with more curiosity about these topics as they become more commonly seen in the news, more commonly seen, talked about. And that's good. We also see more opportunities being given to, I think especially with the trend in autobiographical comics, I think that there's been a bigger push to see like just people's unique life stories portrayed, which has also opened a pathway for various marginalized identities, including like trans people, non-binary people, people with various like disabilities or mental illnesses, neurodiversities, portrayed in comics, portraying their story.
Yeah. I think that's the perfect jumping off point because Memoir really is, I think, the easiest, sort of clearest, recognizable type of like this story is an LGBT story written by someone in the community, and a lot of the times it will be about not only their personal journey and their personal experiences, but somewhat educational for readers to then become more informed on the topic that they are discussing. Most notably, the one we have here in English is The Bride Was a Boy, which is about a young transgender woman preparing for her marriage to her husband, who is a cisgendered man, and their life and her experience being transgender in Japan, being a transgender person in Japan with a cisgendered partner, and that being a heterosexual relationship versus being a homosexual relationship. It's really interesting just to show the different facets of kind of the queer experience, even within the LGBT community.
Yeah, I know that that book in particular, I've seen a lot of people like say, "Oh, it's boring" or "It's unrealistic," which that's a weird take on a memoir. But
yeah,
I get the boring thing just because like she is certainly someone who like, although she is a member of this marginalized community, she does have a lot of privilege. She's had a lot of blessings in life. But I also, I think that's one of the things I really like and appreciate about that book is, having a counterpoint to, like, this, trans tragedy narrative that, like, trans people's lives are nothing but pain. So, it's I'm happy. My husband loves me. I love him. Doing great.
Exactly. When I spoke about the series on my channel before, that was my big thing, is that I found it was a really wonderful, hopeful story, especially for young trans people, that, your existence isn't inherently negative. It isn't inherently going to be a terrible one. There are people out there who will love you, who will accept you, who will help you. And so comparatively to other trans manga that we've seen in English and otherwise that are like, oh, you're never going to be accepted. Your life is terrible. You're going to die in a tragic fire. It's a nice change of pace, to say the least.
Yeah, their whole life experience is just like, I dreamed a dream from Les Mis. So horrible. Yeah. I just finished Yureto yesterday, and that was Yeah, a lot of trans tragedy in that one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's kind of Claudine
That's
came out
yeah,
similar time
Claudine. Claudine.
as Bright as a
Um,
Boy, English wise, and that those two were very opposite ends of the spectrum for trans representation.
yeah. Not that Claudine isn't worth reading. It's just it's of its time.
Yes,
um,
dated to say the least.
to say the least. Yeah. I also wanted to mention, kind of on the less positive side of things,
Mm-hmm.
within Memoir, we also have, of course, the wildly popular and successful My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness and its
Mm-hmm.
sequels. It's not really
Nice.
about, uh, what's her name? Nagata Kabi?
Uh,
Uh,
yes, yes.
yeah, it's not really about her lesbian identity, but it is a part of the book. And I kind of appreciate that it's just kind of casually there. Like, also,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gay.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about my, you know, horrible
Crippling
depression,
mental illness and
alcoholism,
yeah,
family problems.
yeah. Those
I worry
those
about her
books,
every
I
day.
do, I do as well. They're a rough read, and
I
I
feel
think
like every
everyone
time
who's
she publishes a book, her life gets worse.
yeah, her new one is like, I was hospitalized for my alcoholism. I'm like, oh no, please, oh, please look after yourself. Oh no,
But they're really good.
they are really good.
um,
um,
and it's an interesting, look into kind of the intersection of queer identity and mental illness, neurodiversity.
and
Um,
family relationship and
yeah,
those as well. It's family dependency definitely for her. Um, but then from that, we also of course have a lot of narrative-driven LGBT manga stuff like I think both of one of our favorites are Dreams at Dusk.
mm-hmm.
Fabulous story. Cannot
Yeah,
recommend it highly enough. That one is an own voices work, as
uh-huh.
all of the that we've talked about so far, aside from Claudine, have
Yeah.
been.
So it's not own voices, and that the main character is a cis gay man. The mangaka is non-binary and
Ex-gender,
asexual,
yeah.
but there's just it's just so unmatched, honestly, like by
Mm-hmm.
anything, just in terms of the representation and just how good it is as a story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
And I really appreciate Our Dreams at Dusk because it has obviously it's a huge focus on community. It's a huge focus on these various different characters within the LGBT spectrum who come
mhm,
together and form this group. And because of that, it has different people at different stages of their lives and their different
mhm,
stages of acceptance of themselves
mhm.
and obviously different stages of their experience. um it's just it's beautiful, it's marvelous. I adore Yuki Kamatani and I want all of their work in English.
Yeah, it's so good. I want Shonen Note in English so bad.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean we've spoken about this off air that give
yeah,
me Shonen Note.
yep. That one as well, I've heard, has non-binary representation in it. I haven't gotten far
Yes.
enough in the series yet to like know about it
Yeah.
myself, but
Even
I'm
even their
sure,
earliest
right?
yeah. Even their earliest work, Nobara no O has a lot of interesting stuff that it does with I guess sexuality and identity, um, which isn't inherently obvious when you first start reading it, but does become a little more prominent later on. So, I mean, it's always been a theme within their work, and I think that Our Dreams at Dusk is kind of the epitome of a lot of their stories and a lot of what they wanted to tell. And I hope we see more from them as well. Because They have 2 or 3, I think at least one ongoing title currently, which will never be licensed, but I want it to be. And I hope we do see more of their manga in English soon, someday.
Yeah. That Shonen Note's one that I'm pretty much always requesting in surveys.
Same.
So, yeah. Just like, who better to write a story about choir boys than Yuki Kamatani with that art style? It's just perfect.
The visual metaphor in their work is just oof.
It's so whimsical.
I love it.
I guess in a similar vein of titles that kind of feature the larger LGBTQ community and a bunch of people of different LGBT identities coming together is the one that we just got the first volume of, which is Love Me for Who I Am, which is known as Fukaboku. Yes. So this one is about a non-binary kid named Mogumo, who is invited to work by one of their male classmates to work at a cafe that is themed around otokonoko, which is like femboys, basically. It's it's the fetish essentially of like cross-dressing boys
skirt.
who look very cute and feminine and young. It's a lot of the characters who work as waiters at this, as servers at this cafe, are queer. There's a trans girl, obviously Mogumo's non-binary. One of them's gay and has a boyfriend. And it's I thought the first volume had a few hiccups in terms of the writing. I've heard that it improves greatly from volume 2, so I am interested to see that.
Yeah, it's a solid start to the story. I think it introduces the characters very. It makes you know which characters are important and how these characters interact with each other, and how they find each other through this.
Yeah, and I think it's already got some really good conversations about especially labels and the importance that they can have for people. Specifically the label of otokonoko, which the otoko part means boy and the ko part means girl. And so Mogumo does not like that term and does not want to use it to refer to themselves because they don't want to present themselves as a boy. Yeah. And they feel very strongly about that. But there's another server within the cafe who is a trans woman who's just kind of, for her, the term otokonoko is very freeing to her, and is, you can tell, a very important step for her in becoming more accepting of herself and, being able to express herself as her true gender as a woman. And, she says, don't take away our right to be called otokonoko.
It's very interesting, even outside of the manga. On Twitter, I've seen discussion about the use of this term and whether translating it or not, and how it's used. And again, I think with all labels, it's very dependent on the person and very dependent on the intent as well when it's being said. So that sort of conversation, I think, is something that right now people are in the midst of when we're talking about LGBT, things, issues that people come across again and again,
Mm-hmm.
reclaiming words, reclaiming labels, or not using labels, and the distinct difference of what's personally, you know, not an issue, and then what is for some others like definitely an issue. So it's really nice to see that conversation that is so current being reflected
Yeah.
in manga right now as well.
Yeah, and in general, I really appreciate that we're starting to get more stories that aren't just like coming out stories or like, oh my
Yes,
god,
yeah.
gay people exist.
Wait, huh?
And instead, like titles that like are actually made by and for members of the LGBTQ community to,
Mm-hmm.
hash through, intercommunity issues that are very current and very now that people are talking about at this moment.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
rather than just constantly assuming that the only people who are going to be reading your work are clueless straights.
Yeah, it's really refreshing, and I think it's somewhat of a, I don't want to say an educational tool, but it opens up that conversation for people even within the community to kind of assess their own biases, their own
Mm-hmm.
like how they perceive their world and their community around them. I think it's an interesting
Yeah.
way that shapes the conversation as well.
Yeah, and I also think it's valuable for people outside the community as well. Just like I
Of
think it
course.
makes the community, like I'm just saying, like it's good for everyone, right?
Mhm.
Like it's
Mhm.
valuable within the community to obviously have a place to like talk through these things, but also outside the community because it makes the community less one dimensional.
Mhm.
It makes it like, okay, I've come out. Now my life story is over. Rather than that, it's like, there is this larger community and like it's very like deep and very multifaceted and like people disagree with
mhm.
each other and people agree with each other and it's complicated.
Yeah, and I think by giving these issues and these conversations faces, basically through characters, it makes it a lot more approachable for people to talk about and to like actually connect with within and with from without the community. I think it's always easier when you have when we're talking about media and we're talking about this type of story where there is major important conversations going on. It's always nice to have a face to both sides of this conversation as well, and to be able to understand these characters and their motivations and their lives and things like that. So it makes it
Yeah.
much more approachable as a subject, because I've mentioned this a million times on the podcast before. I'm not within the LGBT community. I am very supportive of it, but I'm not, part of it. Um, and I think the conversations that certain manga and certain text, certain media, whatever you want to say, has does make it easier for people to understand the current issues of the day, the current issues of what is important to people right now outside of, like, as Ray said, oh, we've come out. I guess that's all the issues my life has ever had. Is just is
Homophobia is over.
no nothing to
We
worry
did it,
about.
guys. Yes.
Which does seem to kind of be the end state, especially with romance manga and things like that, of the acceptance or the get together, ultimately being the happy ending. When in reality, that's just a small part of people's lives in general, which of course includes LGBT people. So, yeah, it's a nice trend.
I think the other one that you really wanted to mention was Known Voices title by one of the biggest creators in gay manga, gay komi,
Uh huh. Yes.
who like his stuff that's gay komi is very different from this title. But
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend his normal manga, his geikomi to those weak of heart, but
yeah, you know, if it's for you, it's
his most I think probably well known in the West now. Certainly his first all ages manga that he wrote and also has now been released is a series called My Brother's Husband, which follows a Japanese man and his young daughter who end up having to look after home, basically. His brother-in-law. So his twin brother had died very shortly before the series began. He was a gay man living in Canada, and he has a Canadian husband. They got married whilst he was there, and unfortunately, he has died since. And so, in the wake of this loss, his husband, this Canadian, has come to Japan to sort of experience his husband's life, his husband's family, his husband's culture in a way that he wasn't able to whilst he was still alive, and to connect with the family he's never met before. And through the story, we have our main character, the surviving brother, have to reassess and learn more about his own prejudices, his own biases. He's presented as, I think, a pretty understandable character in so far as I think he's what a lot of people are. They don't inherently understand or know that they are incredibly biased. Because he's not outright homophobic. He's always posited that he's always accepted his brother. When he came out to him, he didn't have an issue. But ultimately, they did drift apart, and he does learn to realize that gay people, there's no difference between them and, heterosexual people. There's no difference between, they're not inherently like sexual people. They're not inherently all of these stereotypes, all of these stigmas that he's grown up with and just subconsciously brought into his life and into his understanding of LGBT people and furthermore his brother. By meeting his brother-in-law, his brother's husband, and through the kind of innocent and accepting way of his daughter asking about these topics, he's able to learn more about himself and his prejudices and become more accepting and see the bigotry, see the biases within Japanese society that he just didn't even really see at all up until this point. So, yeah, and then of course the difference between the queer experience in Japan versus the queer experience in the West, most notably Canada, and how that differs as well. The meeting of cultures, if you will. It is wonderful. Read it.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one because it was created for a mainstream seinen magazine primarily for an assumed straight audience. So it does take a very kind of educational bent. I think that I think his name is Yaichi is meant to be very Monthly Action is the magazine. He's meant to be very relatable, I think, to the average Japanese reader. In that he's not outright hateful or anything, but he is very uncomfortable with homosexuality, with all of these issues. He's really unfamiliar with them, except for the very unflattering portrayals in media. And it kind of leads to a drifting away from his brother, without him really even ever examining that stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like this title is very valuable as a good, like, entry point into learning about the LGBT community and specifically the gay male community.
Mm-hmm.
And is really just meant as that. It doesn't really go that much deeper beyond, like, gay people exist and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're normal. But I think that it's a valuable title to have, and certainly one that you should absolutely read if you're kind of new to this topic. I think it's a fantastic place to start.
Mm-hmm.
And the books we got are gorgeous too. They're hardcovers.
Yeah, hard. Then there's been a couple. I mean, the original release was 2 omnibus editions, hardcover. There's been paperback editions and I think an all-in-one edition released since. So there's a lot of different ways you can buy this series, and yeah, it's by Pantheon Books, or been put out by Pantheon Books, which are not a general name in manga publishing. So it's, I hope people do continue to support it because I'd like to see more from them, but also more of this style of manga being licensed.
Yeah, he has a new one. Gengoro Tagame
Yeah.
has a new one that's about like a student and like a teacher and who's a gay ends up being kind of a mentor figure to him. I haven't read it,
Mm-hmm.
but
No,
it
neither have
sounds
I, but
very
I want to.
sweet. It's very sweet in the same vein as My Brother's Husband. So, um, would love to get that in English for sure. um, I guess I'll also mention the title that I also put on all the surveys because I want it so badly. And I know that I've got G all excited about it too. Is
Yes.
a title called Kanojo ni naritai kimi to boku, which I've seen translated loosely as I Wanna Be Your Girl. Um, this one is another one in the vein of like Our Dreams at Dusk or Love Me for Who I Am, that's like an ensemble queer cast.
Mm-hmm.
And it is about a trans girl named Mako-chan, who has basically, like, in starting high school, she's decided to take the first big step in her transition. She has gotten permission from the school to wear the girl's uniform instead of the boy's uniform. So, she goes to school wearing the sailor uniform, um, you know, which I think that um, she, in terms of design, like, since she hasn't gone through any, like, hormonal transition, medical transition, or anything, she is a character who is, you know, as much as, like, passing is, like, bullshit and shouldn't exist, there is, like, such a thing as passing privilege, and
Yeah.
Mako-chan is somebody who doesn't necessarily pass to a lot of people, and she faces a lot of very particular discrimination because of that, which I think is not something that's portrayed in manga very often. I think usually even when we get, like, trans girls, they're always, like, perfectly adorable and conventionally attractive, like Shu-chan from Wandering Sun, or the girl from Love Me for Who I Am, even. So it's kind of nice to see that intersection dealt with a little bit, as well as, yeah, basically the other part of the premise is that her childhood friend, oh fuck, I forgot her name right now, but she's really cute. She decides that in solidarity with her friend, she wants to wear the boys' uniform so that Mako-chan's not the only one who's getting bullied for the clothing that she's wearing. And yeah, it's just about their school days. They end up in this little group of friends with this kind of Yankee girl who turns out to be a lesbian, and this other girl who's like, she reminds me of Mommy from Blue Flag. She's
nice.
like the girly girl, I guess, who talks in like a really annoying way, and it's really cute. And yeah, it's so good. I can't even like express. I thought it was going to be so gimmicky, you know? But it's so good. It is so wonderful. I just saw there was like a preview of the third volume on the mangaka's Twitter. And there's a very supportive teacher character who I love as a teacher. He's Ace, so we're gonna learn more about him, which is great. Because he's always been like such an important mentor to them in the first two volumes, and it's just like girls being supportive of each other and hanging out and being buds, and it really talks a lot about, you know, it being okay to be at whatever stage that you're at, that like you don't have to like, you don't have to prove yourself to anybody, you know?
Yeah.
Who you are is real and it's valid, and you're not doing anything wrong is a big theme of it, which I really appreciate.
So I'm really keen to read that series. I know that it's one that I've been putting on the surveys a lot as well, because every time I speak to Ray, we always talk about we always end up talking about that series in some capacity.
I'm sorry, I love it so much. It's so cute.
No, it's good. It's good. That's why
it's so wholesome.
This is why you have friends, so you can push all of your interests onto them and drag them into the wholesome love that you're already feeling. Yeah, I'm really hoping that and I feel like with Seven Seas' current trend, that won't be a out of the realm possibility to see in English, because as we mentioned, they are definitely kind of at the forefront of the licensing LGBT manga right now. In saying that, I do want to highlight a kind of an oddity. It's a digital only title, and it's actually being released in English, chapter by chapter, by a French publisher called Akata. And this is the series called Staring at Your Back by Kuro Nohara, who is a very well-known gay comic artist like Tagami, we spoke about before. And this is also like one of his like all ages, everyone can enjoy romance stories. It is a romance about two it's about two teenagers who were previously classmates. They reunite in high school, and obviously their relationship develops from there. A lot of it is kind of focused on the overwhelming pressure our main character feels being in a small town, about like the expectation to get married, to have a family, and kind of the expected things to do for young men in society. Like, oh, you have to be married by this age, have a family at this age, be working by this age, and the pressures that puts onto him, which initially he doesn't really recognize as why, until of course he reconnects with this long-time friend, long forgotten friend, and sort of realizes a little bit more about himself and obviously his sexuality, and this is sort of a coming out series, which I said we talked about. Really, none of the ones we've talked about up until this point have been about that. So I did want to throw this one in there because, again, this is an Own Voices work, and it has like with Tagame, it does have a quite light touch when it comes to just being very approachable. I think it has a real grounded nature to it. Also, Nohara has, when you read about Nohara, he does have a background of, like, he has schooling in New York. He's spent a lot of time overseas, so he has a perspective outside, or he can show both sides, I think, of identity, queer identity within Japan versus outside of Japan, and the different pressures on those groups of people and from within those communities. It's really good. I think 6 or 7 of the chapters have been released, so I think it's 8 chapters altogether. And it's each chapter is only like $1. So if that sounds interesting to you, you can buy it on Kindle or wherever else you may buy digital books. It's worth a look. I like to encourage an odd little thing, especially seeing as this is coming from a French publisher as well. That's not something we tend to see in the English-speaking market. So yeah, check it out if that sounds somewhat interesting to you.
Yeah. It sounds interesting to me. I guess in a similar vein would be the 3-volume series, That Blue Sky Feeling, which is by Okura, I think is his name. He is... I don't know that he does, like, gay komi, but he is gay. And that story... There's a little questionable stuff with, like, this older guy.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's... it is a reality for a lot of gay dudes in particular in Japan, that a lot of them will have an older partner who ends up being kind of a mentor figure to them, who, you know, they might have been involved with when they were not kosher age.
Yeah.
It's I don't think it's a very uncommon experience. And so when I read this, I was like, it makes me uncomfortable, you know, but I also like, I saw realism to it. I saw, you know, probably something that Okura himself has seen, if not, you know, speaking from his own experience. So I guess it's important to keep that in mind going into it. But it is a very sweet story about this kid who transfers to a new school, and he ends up, like, finding out this boy in class who's, like, always alone, seems kind of gloomy, is always alone because the class has kind of shunned him because of rumors that he's gay. And he's like, well, that's unfair that you've just decided that he's gay. And so he decides to make it his mission to be this kid's friend. And it turns out that this kid actually is gay. And they just, through their friendship, I think the main character, he becomes more open and accepting, and also begins to start looking into his own feelings, exploring his own queer identity, and it is a romance. So, I liked that one.
I particularly like not only the relationship between our 2 main male characters, but I also really liked the female friend, and her role that she played within that story. Even if she doesn't always understand or, like, fully know what's going on because they keep her in the dark for far too long, she's very supportive, and she's very willing to be there for these people that she cares about, regardless of her own feelings. It's wonderful. I love her.
Yeah. I feel like that character is sometimes portrayed as quite mean-spirited or backhanded, and I liked that she was, you know, just there to be a genuine friend. Yeah, but that author, Okura, he has a new series that I keep wanting to pick up and I just haven't,
Mm-hmm.
called uh, My Son is Probably Gay,
Yeah, I
uh,
want to read that one.
which is like a cute little like slice of life comedy about like a mom who's like, she's pretty sure her son is gay, and he hasn't told her, but she's just like, waiting for the day that he'll tell her because she's like, I'm totally fine with it, but I want him to come to me. I don't want to pressure him.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I want to read that one. And so Seven Seas, next lesson survey. Yeah.
Seven Seas or anybody else.
Anyone.
Other publishers. Y'all other publishers can
take...
step up your game anytime. All I'm saying.
Yes. Yes. Seven Seas can't be holding the entire industry on its shoulders, no matter how much the reality of that is. But come on. Come on, guys. Snap to
it. Yeah. So did we want to kind of go into our second category?
Yeah, I think so.
So this is stuff that's like not necessarily like about LGBT issues primarily, but features prominently LGBT characters. And we also kind of shoved all the BL and the Yuri in this category as well. Which we've talked about pretty much all the BL and Yuri we can talk about in our episodes on those subjects, which I suppose if we remember, we'll put those links in the description.
Yeah, but they're the second and third episodes we ever did for the podcast. Yep. So they're there. They're ready to listen to at any time. And they're long, so there's plenty to enjoy.
Yep. Lots of great recommendations there. So I feel like we don't need to go too into depth in this category. Just kind of drop some names. So in terms of BL that I consider to be like really kind of positive and I guess dealing a bit more with like more realistic queer characters than a lot of BL that's just pure fantasy.
Yeah. Yes.
I think Given is really great.
Yeah.
I adore all four of those characters so much.
Oh my goodness! I cannot wait till volume 2. It's on this way, and I'm already like so invested. I've seen the show, and I know what happens, but I'm already so invested.
I like the dynamic of having one of the characters in the main couple, the high school couple, being like this being very much like an awakening for him, like the first time that he's fallen in love, I think ever.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the other one has, he's coming out of a relationship that ended in a very tragic way for him. He's dealing with a lot of trauma from that. But like he's very aware that he is gay, that he's interested in men. Yeah. I like that dynamic, especially because he seems like he would be someone who has no experience at all.
Yeah, exactly. But it led to one of my favorite panels, which was like at the end of the book about like how they're talking about the guitar, like Uenomiya, whatever his name is, whether or not he's popular at school, and the other guy's like, yeah, he's probably popular. And it's like, oh, because he's handsome. It's like, well, no, it's because he seems like a virgin, and that's kind of cute. And I'm like, oh, I love it. I laugh so hard.
It's true.
Exactly.
He's so pure. He's so pure. He thinks he's such a badass, and he's so pure.
He's like, yeah, I'm a cool guitarist guy. And I'm like, oh, sweetheart. Oh, sweetheart, you're breaking into cold sweats at the idea of, like, holding hands with the boy. Good. You're such a tough guy.
So the 2 older members of the band are messy as hell.
Yeah.
They're so messy. But I do love them. And the one who's named after fall, Akihito?
So yeah,
Aki. He is openly bisexual, and he ends up being kind of a mentor to the 2 younger members, even though he has no business mentoring anyone about their love life until he fixes his own shit. But you know,
oh well.
I always appreciate that. As a bisexual myself, you know, they never use the word, right? They're always like, I don't like labels. I appreciate beauty in all its forms. So whenever you get like a major character who's like, yeah, I'm bi, it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
So really love Given. Check that one out.
Yeah.
For sure. Check out the anime as well. It's great anime. Made me cry.
Yeah, I think it's been licensed by Sentai Film. I can't remember. Someone has licensed it. We are getting it on disc at some point. But you can watch it on Crunchyroll already right now. And the manga is coming out by Viz under their Sublime label imprint, which is their BL imprint. So yeah, be sure to support them, because it's nice having, I guess, like a longer ongoing just interesting BL that doesn't have all these horrible toxic tropes.
Like when I say mess, it's not like, it's just like drama mess, you know? Like it's not like, you know,
BL trope mess.
He got raped by a gang member who sold him into the Yakuza as a sex slave. It's like, you know, he's got some mess with his like kind of ex-boyfriend who's like not really his ex-boyfriend, and it's like, boy.
He still loves him, but they can't really let go, and then pretty average relationship drama mess.
It's like normal mess. It's not BL mess. Like whatever the hell the cornered mouse dreams of cheese is. It's not that kind of mess.
No. And then I think another BL, which I think could also go under the first one as well, is Go For It Nakamura. We spoke about this title a lot in our BL episode. Which is about a high schooler called Nakamura who has a big fat crush on one of his classmates, but hasn't actually ever spoken to him, and so is now trying to, well, because he's like super shy and awkward. But they ultimately become friends, and it's about them becoming friends, and it's not really romantic insofar as where the book ends. I know there's a sequel, so I don't know how that develops past this point, but it's it's really nice. Nakamura, again, is a very self-assured, like, he's aware that he's gay. He has been gay. He doesn't really question that, aside from one point where he's like, maybe I'm bisexual. He never worries that, or doesn't know that he likes guys. And I think it's just really, he's really sweet and funny, and he's such a good boy, and you want things to work out for him, whether that be romantically or just through friendship with this other boy. And
it's really wacky comedy too. Like, Shinde has a nice like retro art style that's kind of Rumiko Takahashi-esque. And there's a lot of like really dumb like slapstick. Nakamura's really into octopuses, which comes into play more than once. He's got a pet octopus. And he's like, I definitely don't want my crush to know how much I love octopi. But then he finds out anyway, and he's like, that's really cute.
That's cool. What? How do you know
Sick.
so much about octopus, dude? And you're, no reason.
Sick hobby, bro.
We love supportive kings. What a good series.
Yeah, it's only one volume long, so it's, you know, it's a great one to pick up right now.
Yes. Don't, but just be warned that don't immediately jump into Sunde's other book that is available in English after Nakamura, because that one is completely different.
Yeah. If you like freaky horror, it's really good.
Yeah.
But if you don't like freaky horror, don't read it. BL. We also have another volume one called Our Dining Table, which is really sweet.
Yes, it is. Oh.
Yeah, so it's about two 23-year-old men. Basically, they have like a chance meeting where the one guy who's a salaryman or whatever, and has like a complex about eating alone because of some trauma from when he was a
Eating in front
kid.
of people as well. Eating alone.
Oh, not eating alone. Eating in front of people. That's what I meant to say, but I said it backwards. He always eats alone because he has a complex about eating in front of other people.
Mm-hmm.
That's the correct sentence. Don't worry about me. I'm fine. Yeah, so he always, like, he gets his food from the supermarket and it's super bland and, like, he doesn't like thinking about eating because it's kind of an anxiety thing for him. But, you know, one day he's, like, eating alone in the park and this little kid comes up. I don't know. He's just like, hi! And then his stomach growls really loud, so he's like, here, you can have my rice ball. And they, like, hang out for a little bit, and then his older brother comes by. And, the kid really likes his rice ball. He's, like, super into it. He's like, this is the most delicious thing I've ever eaten. So the brother's like, hey, you want to come to our place this weekend and teach my kid how to make this rice ball? So they start doing these weekend things where they, like, make food and eat it together.
Yeah, it's very, very Sweetness and Lightning-esque style of setup, you know?
Yep. It's a little more melancholy than Sweetness and Lightning. Sweetness and Lightning can get melancholy, but I think the tone here is a little bit more so. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just, these weekend meetings end up being really important to both of them, and we get a bit of a budding romance. The kid is so cute.
Yes.
So cute. And his name is Tane, which is a seed. That's so cute. And he has a little hat that makes him look like an acorn.
He's adorable. It's a really sweet little, like, very heartwarming. And I think it's something that also comes up in the next title that I'm going to talk about, but it's definitely focused on, like, the relationship built around food and how food and companionship can go hand in hand. That's one of the largest themes in Sweetness and Lightning as well. But how, you know, through it really was for these two a chance meeting, and but by having this regular thing that they do, they open up to each other, they become more comfortable with each other, and the issues around food that both sides of our characters have, are slowly being overcome through gaining new positive experiences with meals and cooking and sharing food. It's so heartwarming.
Yeah, I appreciate how Tane isn't just like a prop to be cute in the story as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this story is very much about the three of them becoming kind of this little makeshift family. Um, both of the guys really care about Tane. Tane really cares about both of them. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I liked towards the end when they're kind of dating and like there's this fear that's like that they have to kind of talk through and work through that's like, if this goes sour and like, you know, we this ends, like I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to be losing two people instead of one.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
which I thought was nice because I think in these types of stories, sometimes the kid does feel like kind of a prop,
Prop.
you
Yeah.
know.
A cuteness. Like,
Um,
oh, just enjoy
oh
the
look,
manga because we got a cute
it's a
kid.
it's a baby.
Uh-huh.
um, but I felt like he was very much a character in his own right here, which I
Mm.
appreciated a lot. I also, something I liked in terms of the queer representation here, I liked how casual it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's just like one line where they just happen to run into, I think his name is Minoru. It's Utaka and Minoru. So Utaka runs into his adoptive brother, who he's got all his trauma with,
Mm-hmm.
at the supermarket when he's with the other two. And Minoru's like, "Hey, that your brother?" He's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "He's a looker. Not my type, though." And it's just like, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
And that's all it needs to be. It doesn't. It's nice to not have it like this whole
be
like.
like a big deal. Like,
Wait, could I be inhale so much she cough? Could this be because I am the not straight? And you're like, oh my god, yes. Just why is this such a big deal to people in the year 2020? I don't know.
this man is 23 years old. Like, calm down.
uh, um, and following from this, I think it's perfect jumping off point into a series which isn't a BL, and but does feature a gay couple and food. One of my absolute favorite mangaka of all time, her currently ongoing series "What Did You Eat Yesterday?" By Fumi
Mm-hmm.
Yoshinaga. That this series is about a older gay couple as well. They're in their late 40s, early 50s throughout the course of the series, who have been together a very long time, and each chapter is basically about their life and then them coming together, sharing a meal, making, having our main character Shira. He's definitely the chef. He likes to have the best food possible for the lowest price possible. So he's definitely a bit of a housewife, looking for the
Mm-hmm.
sales and things like that. And he makes very lovely, hearty, wonderful variety of meals for himself and his partner Kenji. And oh, I love the series so much just because of, well, one, I'm a big Fumi Yoshinaga fangirl anyway. We've established this. We know this. But I really love the domesticity of this series. And again, there's a lot of cooking and food manga out there, and we've talked about the series again before on the podcast. But I feel like this one is realistic to more people and to people like actually cooking in a house for a household or for their partner. It doesn't necessarily need a whole bunch of very rare ingredients or a lot of huge amount of cooking skill. It's very meticulous in its recipes throughout the course of the series, but it also gives a very realistic look at an established couple, people who've been together for years, who tease each other, who, get on each other's nerves, but who care about each other and support each other. And also throughout the course of the series, we do see glimpses into their life. And I think it's really nice to have it's very grounded in reality. Shiro personally isn't out at work aside from his boss, and that's a very conscious decision. He's a lawyer. He doesn't want his coworkers or his clients to have any sort of perception about him other than what he shows off. Whereas his partner, Kenji, he's a hairdresser. He's a lot more open with his sexuality, and everybody knows that he's a lot more flamboyant. And so they have very different personalities, and they have very different family backgrounds, and that role in their lives, the issues that come through, especially with Shiro's parents, throughout the course of the series, do make it feel more than just like, oh, this is a cooking manga that just happens to have gay characters as the main characters. It's really, really good. Again,
it's really good. It's my personal favorite Fumi Yoshinaga series. The drama is also excellent. It's only on Japanese Netflix, but boot up your ExpressVPN or your Surfshark or whatever you've been scammed into getting from your favorite YouTuber. It's really good. The actors do such a good job. They do such a good job of translating Yoshinaga's humor to the TV format. And it's so nice to see stories like this in dramas as well. Dramas are, I feel like, so much more like broad in their appeal and audience than manga. So even something like What Did You Eat Yesterday that runs in a mainstream seinen magazine. It's nice.
Yeah. I really like the fact that these characters are like in their 40s and 50s. They're not young people, which tends to be the case for most LGBT characters in manga. Just because there's a lot of change going on in your life when you're young. And
a lot of mangaka are young.
Yeah, and a lot of their readers are young, so like it all makes sense, but it's just nice to see. It's a self-fulfilling
prophecy.
But it's nice to see people who have been together 15, 20 years, who know each other, and it's not just like, oh, if I screw up the eggs, will they leave me, or will they like laugh and eat the terrible omelet anyway? And I'm like, oh god, just that's not how. It's not relationships.
It'll also sometimes deal with like some of the issues that they have that are very specific to like that age group. With like their body's not working exactly the way that they want them to, health issues coming up, or, thinking about, certain eventual inevitabilities that feel a lot closer now.
Especially as, considering this is a gay couple, they don't have the structure of children to look after them in their old age, or like anything like that, and they're still kind of working on the relationship with their parents, who now are expecting support from them because they're older. It's just really, really well done. You see Shiro talking to some of his friends who have children, who have grandchildren, and the different dynamic that is in their household versus just him and his partner, and the very few friends that they have.
One housewife.
Yeah, pretty much. And then the other two gay people that Shiro can stand to be around. Like, no one else. No one else.
Shiro, that's your problem.
Of course it is. But he's just like, I'm not gonna deal with this drama. I have my own life. I don't even want to know. But
grumpy old man.
He was a grumpy old man when he was born. He was just Grumpy old narcissistic
He just came
man.
out with, like, a grumpy old man face.
Yeah. And knowing he's hot, so he's like, it's fine, I'm beautiful. I'll just be really good at my job. No one can question me, and it's fine. It's fine.
I will seek emotional fulfillment solely through supermarket sales.
Exactly.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about some girl gay.
Yeah.
So I think kind of one of the go-to, like, best Yuri titles as far as, like, representation of, like, queer girls, you know, coming to terms with their identity, falling in love for the first time, is Girlfriends by our queen mother, Milk Morinaga.
Yay.
Definitely, I would consider it to be her magnum opus. As far as the stuff that we've gotten in English, she's very prolific.
Yeah.
That series it's so good. It's so good. Of course it's adorable, just like anything you're gonna get from Morinaga. But it's just so natural in its progression of, like, these girls becoming friends and then, like, realizing that maybe it could be something a little more, something a little different. And realizing that they are, you know, physically interested in each other, as well as, you know, emotionally riding that line between friendship and romance, trying to figure out what exactly their relationship is, which I think can be a very tough thing to navigate for girls in particular.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the lines are so blurred between friendship and romance, between young women. And I think it's dealt with very well here. And I like that you do get sort of the issues of them. I feel like Yuri is so often sexless.
Yeah.
And I like the way that this series, you know, handles the physical intimacy and sexual attraction aspects of their relationship. Of this first love for both of them. Yeah, it's a really good coming of age, like, first love, coming out kind of story. Super solid. And adorable the entire way through. And of course, own voices, because Morinaga is an out lesbian creator. You know, I've said it many times. I think it's starting to, like, get through some people's skulls, at least a little. But Yuri is mostly written by women. It is not like a distaff counterpart to BL. It's mostly written by women. Men are more of a minority within writing Yuri. Yeah. There's also Bloom Into You, which is a bit newer than Girlfriends and longer.
Yes.
This one has an anime as well. Again, very just, like, super solid, good first love story between two girls. It is unfortunate that, like, I think the best Yuri that we've gotten in English, in terms of, like, the depth of the story, is primarily kind of the same story of, like, two girls in high school falling in love for the first time. But, like, I'm gonna mention them anyway because they're really good, right?
Yeah, of course.
This one has some asexual representation. It has some mentor characters who are, like, one of the teachers who is in a long-term relationship with another woman. I really like the character of her name's Sayaka or something.
Yeah.
Who's sort of the rival in love, but I actually really love her. And I haven't read the novel that's like about her. Yeah, I like just seeing her struggles with uh being someone who is very, very aware that she is attracted to women and only women. Um, kind of trying to come to terms with that while also dealing with, being rejected by the woman that she loves. Um, and finding kind of a mentor in this teacher who is also a woman who loves women. Um, and it's also a co-ed school, which is kind of rare for Yuri,
Yeah.
so that's nice too.
Yeah.
There's boys in the cast.
It's not just some male-less society world.
Utopia.
Where, yeah.
Like Yuri Bearstorm, where like the men are either like not there or portrayed exclusively by crossdressers.
Yes.
It's almost like we're making a comment about something.
And that's, I think, the perfect segue into Yuri Kuma Arashi, or Yuri Bearstorm, put out by Tokyo Pop. That one is by Akiko Morishima, and 3 volumes long. It is somewhat, I would say it's its own story. It does help if you've seen the show. It's like a lot of the a lot of the other Ikuhara verse, I guess, is like a multimedia project.
Yeah.
There's manga, there's light novels, anime.
Yeah, so Ikuhara really likes taking inspiration from other creators, and for all of his like major series projects, he has brought on a mangaka to do not just the character design, but to develop their own version of the story in manga concurrently with the anime. So the Revolutionary Girl Utena manga, I keep seeing like confusion over whether it's an adaptation of the anime or the other way around. Neither. It's just it was just produced at the same time. Same with Penguin Drum and Yurikuma Arashi.
And Sarazanmai as well.
Sarazanmai.
So,
yep.
Yeah. Plenty of Ikuhara to go around. But the Yuri Bearstorm manga focuses a lot more on the adult characters versus... I mean, it does have a large focus on our main characters, our main 3 girls from the show, but the major relationship that we focus on is with the 3 older women who were previously schoolgirls, friends, classmates together. Yeah. And the complicated relationship they have and had, and the generational kind of implications of the love between them. It's very, 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 very good. But it is very, very, very much an Ikuhara style of story.
Yeah, Yuri Bearstorm's a weird one. I feel like people go into it expecting like cute, sexy, Yuri fun time shenanigans, and then they get just like pure, unfiltered rage.
And also
and
pure,
then they don't know what to do
what
with
the
it.
fuck? They're like, wait, bear, what?
It's weird. It's weird, but it's also angry at you.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Which is exactly what I want in an Ikuhara series, but...
Yeah. Ikuhara is always good when he's, like, actively angry or upset or, like, challenging something, which is every single one of his series. So, I mean, there's... You're never going to be let down.
Yep. There's a lot of injustice in the world, and Ikuhara wants you to know about it. Okay. And Akiko Morishima, too, who she is another Own Voices Yuri creator. She's a very outspoken, like, out lesbian woman, and she particularly loves writing stories about adult women, and particularly adult working women, which you see reflected in her take on the Yurikuma Arashi premise. But, also in the 3 collections of one-shots that we are getting as The Conditions of Paradise in English. Which, like, I feel like if you're looking for, like, a super realistic take on, you know, the day-to-day struggles and experiences of gay women in
That's
society,
not it.
that's not
That's
what this
not
is
this.
for. She wants to write cute, escapist, like, sexy, gentle beauty stories about adult women who love the
In
fuck out of
beautiful
each other.
lingerie.
In beautiful lingerie. Oh my god, I love God. The way she draws women.
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
Don't even talk to me.
I mean,
Talk to me.
if there was ever a question that she was a lesbian, you just have to look at her women. The amount of just beauty she puts into her girls.
No,
Ugh.
the place where I was like, this bitch knows. was like, I think this is from Renai Joshka, which is like a collection of interrelated kind of short stories that are all about like working women within the same office, which is so great. It's just like a Eurytopia in an office. It's an office lady Eurytopia. It's everything I've ever wanted.
And everything she's ever wanted. I mean,
That's what she put in the author's note. She was like, I wanted to draw working women in love with each other, so I did.
So I did it.
Living her best life. Yeah, but the Conditions of Paradise is pure escapist fluff, and I love it for that. Oh yeah, I was gonna say that the scene where, sorry, there was technical difficulties that are hopefully cut out just before this, but I was gonna say that the scene where I was like, this bitch knows, and I think Renai Joshka is like, there's these two ladies who are like, you know, thinking to like get it on. Like the one lady fingers the other one, and then she's like, you know, let me do you too. And the girl looks at her nails, which are like these acrylics, and she's like, no thanks.
Maybe not today.
And then the next morning we see her clipping her nails. It's like, that's the real shit. But yeah, I definitely recommend that as a read. It's just you know, it's not really there to be realistic or groundbreaking. It's just nice. It's just nice.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I'm looking forward to the other 2 books, I believe, of these characters' short story mix for Conditions of Paradise, because Conditions of Paradise is a short story collection as well. None of the characters are really interrelated. They're just like 3 or 4 different couples.
Yeah.
And they were great. I really like them. And it's just
there's some overlap in the other 2 we're gonna get with Renai Joshka. Morishima tends to have like a few couples that she keeps returning to. So yeah, I hope we get Renai Joshka eventually. That would be great.
I'm sure it's in the works. It would surprise me if it wasn't. And I think now that, is there any other Yuri or ladies in love you wanted to talk about before we get into Lustrous? Or do you want to just...
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody knows about Kase-san at this point. It's good. Read it. You know, How Do We Relationship? I haven't read yet because I haven't gotten my copy yet, but I'm very excited to get it. I've heard so much good buzz, and I always see those covers in the bookstore. So, excited about that one. And the one I have read in Japanese that's coming out is Our Teachers Are Dating, which is adorable. So cute. It's another one that's like pure escapist wish fulfillment. Like everyone knows that they're dating. All the students are like cheering them on. The principal's cheering them on. The other teachers are cheering them on. It's very sweet.
And that's what we need in our lives sometimes. Just some pure, fluffy, adorable, heartwarming love.
Love, beauty, about grown-ass women.
Yes. Yeah, the adult grown-ass women part is a big thing. And I think finally for this particular topic or this particular group is a title that again isn't really within Yuri or BL whatsoever, like with What Did You Eat Yesterday, but this isn't even like, it's a sci-fi drama, wonderful, one of my favorite series currently, Land of the Lustrous, which is an ongoing seinen, 11 volumes I think, in Japan.
11 volumes coming out real soon.
Yeah. And so this is Haruko Ichikawa's story about a race of genderless mineral individuals, people.
Rock people.
Rock people, yes. I mean, I say rock people in reference to geologists because that's what we are, but these are literal rock people.
These are rock people.
People made of rock. And they live on a far-flung future Earth, far past the extinction of humanity, and they are constantly being inundated by attacks from a higher, spacely group called the Lunarians, which obviously come from the moon, if it's in the name, in order to protect themselves from being taken to the moon to be used as decoration, jewelry, whatever, etc. There's a lot more going on. It does actually change quite a bit throughout the course of the series. It is marvelous. Everyone should be reading it. If you haven't, you're missing out. But I think this one is definitely, there's a huge focus on identity, on also your role in the world and how you perceive yourself. Our main character, Phos, or Phosphophylite, they really go through a huge change throughout the series, and that's one of the largest questions, is like how much do you change and still be you, basically. And how do you retain yourself after going through so much? It's so good. Anyway.
Yeah, it's very much a series that, I think it got a lot of buzz because it has a largely non-binary cast.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not really why it's in that category for me. Like, that's great.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's like, at some point we need to get more non-binary representation that isn't aliens.
Isn't some weird rock people from the future.
Aliens with who literally would never have any concept of gender. Why would they?
Mm-hmm.
They're like microorganisms that live inside minerals and have symbiotically bonded to each other in the general shape of a humanoid.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting lore.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more so that thematically this series is very much about identity and gender and dysphoria. It's a lot about feeling disconnected from your body, the physicality of your body. I think the series uses body horror in a really interesting way to convey this feeling of disconnection. That, like, I know I've talked about, I don't know that I have on this podcast, but I have before elsewhere, about kind of, I don't experience gender dysphoria, but I do experience that sort of I experience derealization and depersonalization with my depression that can often lead to a feeling of being disconnected from the physical aspect of my body.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I've talked about that in the context of like the appeal of like Eroguro, but I think that it's also very much a factor here where seeing these people who are, you know, you're going to have as much of Phosphophylite's personality in their leg as you do in their head, right?
Yeah.
Because they're just microorganisms. They don't have a brain. Um, so seeing them like shattered or mostly shattered, they get shattered a lot.
Well, because minerals shatter
they're
a lot.
frogs.
There's the whole thing in mineralogy, in geology, is you can tell how hard there's hardness, the Moss scale, and there's the shatter scale. That's why like diamond is the hardest element, right? But they actually shatter very easily. They're not good with impact. It's an interesting type of thing. It's actually I'm getting too into this as, you know, earth scientist, but it's the matrices of
She is
the
also
molecules.
a rock person.
Yeah. If only. Damn. Wish I could have those legs.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, they look kind of young, I'm gonna say.
I don't want the rest, just the legs. I could use that height.
Um, I'm uncomfortable with whatever Karen Gorham's doing.
Yeah, that's a bit yikes.
Um, yeah, it's complicated. It is an emotional roller coaster. I just saw the cover of Volume 11 and I like audibly gasped. I was like,
I haven't seen it yet, so, and because everywhere that it's on pre-order from like Japanese books stores, there's no like cover yet, and so I'm like, what is it? What do I want to know?
I think Manga Mogura put it up earlier today. I just saw it and I was like,
I'll have to check then. I know what I'm doing after the podcast.
Yeah. Follow Manga Mogura, by the way.
Yes, a lot of the titles we
Clutch.
talked about are featured on their Twitter, and they share a lot of cool info.
Yep. But yeah, it has a really interesting like take on what it means to be bodied, almost, and as well as I feel like you get more into the gender aspect of it when we meet beings that actually do have gender, in contrast to the gems who do not, because the Lunarians do have gender, and this other race that lives in the ocean, they have gender as well. And it's interesting to see the play there and like the discussions of what does gender even mean? What does these bodily differences mean? It's like I can't even put into words. It's like, I don't know, I guess because I'm a dumb cis person. And it's like, this is like next level gender shit that I'm like...
And
like,
it also ties into, you know, the idea of the soul and the self, and, you know, and all of, even aside of the dysphoria, outside of there's all the metaphysical, like, philosophical stuff that ties into it. So there's a lot going on, and it's really interesting how they all interplay with each other. I think
a lot about, when I read it, I think a lot about the Catholic theology of the body as well. I'm sure it's much more involved with, like, whatever the Buddhist version of that is, but... you know, the theology of the body is what I grew up with, so it's kind of what I end up, you know, relating it to.
The idea that, again, coming from Catholic background, the idea that Eve was created from Adam's rib, like the same body but different person. Yeah,
but also the difference between the body and the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And how much is the mind a physical part of you?
Yes.
How much is it metaphysical? You know, how much is your mind your body, essentially? You know, are you just like a little brain sitting in a meat bag? You know,
or is there a soul
how much
that understands the world and is really who we are? I'm like, I don't.
the processes of your body, are they disconnected from your mind, or are they an inherent important part of it, you know, inseparable? Would you still be the same person if you were a brain in a jar, you know?
Yeah.
Or does your body also make you who you are?
Yeah.
Yeah, next level shit, Land of the Lustrous. Just like its characters, it has evolved beyond the rest of humanity. Yeah, I hope my babies will someday be okay.
Yeah. I mean, Yellow's not doing too wonderful. I really am.
Foss is struggling.
Foss is. We're not even going into Foss, but like, oh, so many issues, so many characters. God, yeah, that's there's a lot going on.
Okay,
Anyway,
speaking of a lot going on, let's talk about the series that we are pulling out of the problem attic.
all of these series are great. I think they a lot of them they attempt to do something, maybe not well, but they try. And also some of these are older of their time, a little less, when this sort of manga was widespread, or more widely acknowledged, being licensed, being read, especially by like a wider manga audience outside of the LGBT community. So yeah, but regardless of their problems, these are all still series that still deserve to be read. I think there's still value in them, and they're still good stories for what they are. But yeah, not necessarily to the same level that the previous books that we've talked about, the previous series, have been with regards to LGBT themes in particular and the handling of their characters. So I think first up is one that I've spoken a lot about on this channel. It was really one of the first purely, like, I guess, LGBT titles that we saw in English. It is incomplete in English, and this is Wandering Sun by Takako Shimura. And for those who aren't familiar, it's the story of two young trans people, a trans girl and a trans boy, following them from elementary school all the way up until high school.
And
beyond. And there's a lot of things, for me personally, this was a series that kind of introduced me to the wider trans kind of community and like the idea of transness. That might be a stupid thing to say, but I think it was what at least with the anime, it made me more aware of, trans identity, people who were transgendered, and sort of their lives, their struggles, and the prejudices that they face. And there again, there's a lot of missteps with Wandering Sun. It's not. We've spoken about this before, perhaps on the podcast. It's not an Own Voices title. It's similar to another series which we'll talk about in a minute, that has perhaps just added these characters to be trans for a story element, not necessarily wanting to accurately portray their lives. It's more so just for the drama or for an interesting kind of byline. So it's not done with as much care or with as much nuance as it probably would have been if written by a trans individual or someone within the community or someone who had more knowledge of the community and was more willing to research about it, perhaps. Regardless, I do think that both the main characters of Wandering Sun are both very likable. You do get very invested in their story, and it's one of the first titles that also made me very invested on wanting the best for these characters. I wanted them to be okay, right?
Yeah.
I also really appreciated the mentor character in this series. I think she's wonderful. Her relationship with her partner is done very well. And so, whilst it does have, it does have its issues. There's no two ways about it, especially in the latter half, especially with our trans man character, trans boy character.
Man, they did
Kind of
Yoshinoku so dirty.
Yeah, they backpedaled a lot on his arc, which is unfortunate. But I do think that Nitori, her whole storyline is quite nuanced. I think there's a lot of compassion there, again with both characters, but more so her and her relationship with the people around her and her own identity, not just gender identity but sexuality as well.
Yeah, another bisexual queen.
Yeah, and I really like her relationship with her girlfriend later on. It's wonderful. So yeah, it's hard to recommend because one, the manga is unfinished. It will probably never be finished because Fantagraphics is not only a niche publisher but an expensive publisher, so people didn't buy the books when they were being released. Secondly, we did get half of the series, but it is incredibly out of print, and so a lot of the earlier volumes you cannot find for love or money. So if you are wanting to experience this story, I would recommend the anime, perhaps more so, because that is available on Crunchyroll to watch in its entirety. Again, unfortunately, we have never gotten a release for that series, mainly because of other drama, and also I don't know how popular it would be to license, but yeah, I do think it is worth following, and that these characters are worth listening to their story, if regardless of it being a flawed one ultimately.
Yeah, so. I do like how Shimura writes teenagers. They feel very true to life.
Yes, and again, I think you see this with her other work, Sweet Blue Flowers. I like that we've talked about before, but she doesn't shy away from making characters explicitly bisexual, and they say that they're bisexual, which is kind of a not that common, as we've already mentioned. So
they just don't like labels, G. Yeah. The next one, I guess, would be the one that we talked about extensively last month. Really proud of that one, so please listen to it. Is Blue Flag. This is a series that is about a love triangle in the truest sense of the word.
Yes.
We've got a girl in love with a boy who's in love with another boy who's in love with the girl. And that means that, of course, one of the boys in this love triangle is gay, is in love with his childhood best friend, and is struggling with it.
Yeah.
I think we talked extensively about the LGBT aspects of this series in our previous episode. So I don't think I'm going to rehash it here, but it does have some pretty significant issues. I was just translating Kaito's author's notes from the end of the last volume last night, and I think that made it pretty clear that maybe Kaito wasn't as thoughtful as they maybe could have been, because their priorities were elsewhere, which is fair, but like you still need to do your research, bud. Yeah, it's but I do think that it is overall, obviously it's an excellent series. And overall, I think that Toma is an incredibly lovable character.
Yes.
And I think that, you know, for people who just kind of happen upon the series without realizing, I think everybody at this point has heard that it has LGBT aspects to it. But, like, if you haven't, and you just stumble upon it, or if you decide to read it, even though you're not that, like, you don't know that much about that stuff, you know, you will walk away really loving Toma, and I like that he fits a different sort of role in the classroom than the gay kid usually does. Usually they're, like, either the theater gay, or they're, like, lonely, sad, sitting in the corner gay.
Yeah.
This is popular all-American jock gay.
Yeah.
Which is an exciting new genre.
I'm here for it.
Yep, I thought it was so funny that Dorian released that song immediately after.
Yeah,
we were talking about Toma.
Fate.
It's a theme song.
Goodness.
Sorry, bro.
So yes, if you haven't listened to our previous podcast, please do. We're both very proud of that one. I think there's great discussion. There's both a spoiler section and a non-spoiler section, and a bunch of time codes for anyone who wants to jump around and avoid spoilers.
Yeah, we know we're long-winded. We provide time codes.
So, from there, I think one of my, a title that I think both of us wanted to put on to our problematic, but still solid series is Classmates?
Yeah.
Dokyosei by Asumiko Nakamura. I adore Nakamura's work, and I really enjoy, like, I love Classmates a lot. I do think that it has a really, I like the relationship progression through that series. I think the two main characters are wonderful. But, like, unfortunately, with a lot of BL manga, it does, again, have this older male character, but who is kind of a mentor to these kids.
I mean, kind of.
But the difference is that, one, he's a teacher, and he's actively interested in one of his students, and never really changes. Like, he kind of realizes that, I shouldn't be this into my student, but he doesn't actually do anything.
He doesn't seem like he feels bad, though.
He doesn't actually stop.
He's like, the system's keeping me apart from him.
Yeah, and you're like, dude.
He seems like a terrible teacher, too.
Yes. Yeah, so basically, bad teacher, but good couple.
Good couple.
And honestly, I do really, if you haven't seen the film, I do recommend that one. It does kind of take a lot of the focus. Not that there's a huge amount of the teacher in the series in the first place, but he's not in it as much either.
Just enough to make me angry.
But it is, I do really like those two in that series, and I do hope that we see kind of the spin-off sequels, because there's multiple of those, and it follows their lives up until, when they're office workers, working men. And I personally, I really like seeing relationships progress past the, get together, the, falling in love stage, which isn't all that common in Yuri manga, BL manga, even, romance, heterosexual manga. We don't really usually see after the happily ever after. Which normally is it's not the end of the relationship, it's the beginning of the relationship, and there's always so much more that can be shown, but so I would like to see more from the Classmates, I guess, franchise being licensed and released
Verse?
here.
Classmates cinematic universe.
They've only got one film. It can't be a cinematic universe.
Could be. Anything could be a cinematic universe.
Yeah, Hollywood keeps trying to prove that.
Man, if Hollywood made a Classmates cinematic universe, I'd be down. That sounds great.
It does, actually.
They would make it about superheroes and take out any explicit gayness, and then they would still market it as a gay film.
Ew. Don't like that. Not fun.
Capitalism.
Yeah.
Lastly, I just wanted to talk about a couple of classic titles. 70s shoujo, because that is my want. We've got The Rose of Versailles.
Yep.
Oscar is a bisexual queen who has various relationships with men and women throughout the series. And there's certainly in Ikeda's work, there's a lot of tragic lesbians.
I mean, we already mentioned Claudine earlier. There's a lot of 70s tragedy,
which
going on.
It's kind of unclear within the story of Claudine, whether he is being perceived by the author as a trans man or as a lesbian. Let's be frank. It's one of the issues.
Yeah.
But The Rose of Versailles has less issues. It still has issues, but Oscar is perfect, and I will hear nothing to the contrary. It's definitely an important step, I think. I also like how little of a fuck Oscar gives about gender in general. I definitely feel like if The Rose of Versailles was written now, there's a good chance she would be written as non-binary. In case you were wondering if The Rose of Versailles has gay shit in it, yes. Yes, it does. Dear Brother as well, which I know a lot of people really want that one to be released in English. And then I also want to talk about The Heart of Thomas, which is one of my favorite manga of all time. It helped me come to terms with my bisexuality back in high school. It's one of the first BL titles, and it's not really... It's a very vague as far as the line between friendship and romance in that one. Boys kind of hold hands and kiss and, confess their undying love for each other, and then they're like, let's go pick up chicks. It's like, wait a minute.
You are the other half of my soul, but no homo though. Don't worry about it. It's we'll be together forever, but only as friends. Don't worry.
But also you complete me, and you are the angel's wings that have been granted to me after I have fallen into sin.
You are the most gorgeous creature God has ever created. But
girls though, am I right? I've heard of those. So, it's Yeah, it's of its time, but I think that its themes of overcoming trauma, in particular sexual trauma,
Mm-hmm.
um, of self acceptance and learning to love yourself, of just the beauty of love, which, like, it sounds so cheesy, but, like, God, if anything can make you believe in the beauty of love, it's a 70s shoujo manga. Like, you do not even know.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the power of love and empathy to heal, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and how love is something that's universal and really doesn't, it doesn't care about something silly like gender
Mm-hmm.
or, death.
Oh,
There's
that
definitely
pesky thing.
I'm going to become a priest in order to metaphorically marry my dead soulmate thing going
Mm-hmm.
on. But, like,
Mm-hmm.
I it's absolutely worth reading. Um, and I think that its queer representation for what it is has worth. I think it's interesting. It's not really something that I see in other stories portrayed in the way that it is here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also historically interesting. It's an interesting period in manga history and in the history of BL. So, just wanted to mention it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And again, we have spoken about most of these titles, all the 70s titles, in our Year 24 podcast from
Yeah.
a couple
We
months
actually
ago.
didn't talk about the Heart of Thomas very much, which I was
No, we
very sad
didn't.
about.
But we did talk about that in our favorite manga, which was
Yeah.
our very first episode. So we have there's a lot of Heart of Thomas love in this podcast, kind of generally.
um. Yeah. So, shall we go into questions?
I think so.
We got some
We
good ones.
we really did. And again, thank you guys so much for sending your questions in. As always, if you are wanting to send a question in for next podcast, you can always do so by either putting a comment in the comments of this video, or I will also tweet about it. So you can tweet me there. Also, kind of a new thing which has started with this podcast. You can send, if you would prefer to send a question anonymously, you can DM me that, and my DMs are open, and we will do that for you anonymously. Because I know sometimes asking questions can be a bit, you don't necessarily want to attach your name to a question, or it can be a bit intimidating if other people know who's asking the question. So we want to encourage people to be able to feel comfortable asking questions, and hopefully not only learning but just hearing our opinions on a lot of different things. So do we want to start with the anonymous question this time?
Yeah, sure.
So we had this sent in, as I said, through Twitter, and this question was about whether we knew any manga that dealt specifically with bisexuality or pansexuality, either as a central theme or characters who identify as such. Mainly because a lot of the titles, especially even the ones we spoke about today, skew strictly towards gay or lesbian representation or trans representation versus bisexual representation. So they wanted to know
Yeah.
some particular titles and whether or not to look for specific
Yeah.
titles, because they haven't had too much luck looking for it on themselves. So yeah, I know, Ray, this is something you're very passionate about, and hopefully you know more
Yeah.
than I
Well,
do.
intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Wandering Sun for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. We've got. I actually didn't write down answers for this question.
Oh no.
Fantastic. Um. Yeah, Astra Lost in Space as well has a
Yes.
character who is openly bisexual, and I love him.
Yes.
He's
Best
my
character.
favorite.
Yes.
He's a
Favorite
troll.
character of the group.
Um, he's just vibing. He's just
Mm-hmm.
vibing.
Mm-hmm.
Paradise Kiss, the
Yes.
main love interest, George, is openly bisexual, as well as the story of Sayun Koku. Might be a little less well known than Paradise Kiss, but that's a 9 volume series. The Emperor in that one of the main love interests, he's openly bisexual. He, throughout the series, he is in love with the heroine, but he is also very much attracted to men, um, which is kind of nice to see. Um, Shamelessly attracted to men, really. uh, Let me see. I'm like, my head's all in on Yudeto right now, which isn't in English, but both of the main characters of that are bisexual. Um, I'm trying to think of like girl examples. There's not that many. Like you'll
Yeah.
have like the Takarazuka type of character who's like flirts with the ladies, but it's like
Uh-huh.
always portrayed as like some kind of weird hobby that is somehow separate from her sexuality. So I'm thinking of like Kashima from Nozaki-kun as an example. I actually
Mm.
fucking love her to
Yeah.
pieces. Um,
But she is
but
that
it's
trope.
like the only love or attraction that she has that is portrayed as valid is the one with Hori.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, she'll have like 6 girls on each arm, but it like
Mm-hmm.
none of them mean anything to her. It's
Yeah.
like, why do you have this hobby? What?
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so it's a lot harder for me to think of like women. I guess
Mm-hmm.
the one that people are bringing up a lot is our girl, um, Katarina from
Yes. Yes. The
uh, oh god, I get
uh
all those titles mixed up. All
what is
routes
it?
lead to doom.
Reborn as a villainess. No. What is it? Something as a
Um,
villainess, all routes lead to doom. Uh
yeah,
I say I've read all of the novels and I still can't get the title right.
reincarnated. That's because everyone calls it Bacarina, and I don't
Well,
know. There's no point in calling it anything other than Bacarina.
exactly, because that's the perfect title for the series.
Her name is Katarina, and she's Baka.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. That's all you need to
And
know.
bisexual.
Aggressively bisexual, but also like cluelessly bisexual. She just got no idea that she's slaying all the hearts of all the ladies. She's just too
Yep.
good at dating sims.
Yep. Um, it's not really dealt with in the series, but I would say Taichi as well from Blue Flag. It's
Taichi
bisexual.
and Masumi, I mean, spoilers, but that as well.
Yeah.
You've got 2 bisexual
Yep.
characters there. Um,
And let's see. I just
I
had
would.
one. Oh, fucking Shinji. Shinji Ikari from
Oh
Neon
yeah.
Genesis Evangelion.
I
And
mean,
Utena as well.
yes.
Are two bisexual 90s princes.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, and one that I just remembered is an Erika Sakurazawa book. It's Nothing But Loving You, which is one of her single volume titles that we got in English, about a couple who the guy was previously dating another guy, then is dating this girl. That's kind of the whole story. She's they're drawn to each other and she kind of doesn't let up, and they end up, forming a physical relationship, but ultimately he kind of goes back to his boyfriend of who he left before, because he realizes like what he actually wants from, drama, josei drama. But it's nice again that he was like explicitly bisexual, and that he ended up, despite being in a heterosexual relationship for the course of the series, I guess, or the main plot, he does end up back in his homosexual.
Yeah.
Like, both relationships were both valid. I think they were given the same levity and the same importance in his life, which I think was done quite well. So if you want to hunt down Nothing But Loving You by Erika Sakurazawa, there's that one.
It's not hard. Pretty easy to find. Yeah, also just like the two characters that we've already mentioned, would be Lady Oscar from The Rose of Versailles, as well as Aki What's-His-Face from Given. The Yankee-looking motherfucker.
Yeah, I would also... Oh, I can't believe I almost forgot this. Requiem of the Rose King. Richard has... It's never explicitly said that he is bisexual, but he definitely has romantic feelings for both a guy and a girl at one point. So that's nice. Also, there's a bit of, like, gender stuff. Well, a lot of gender stuff there in that series. And it's also just a great series anyway, so yeah.
Yep. Other than that, it's mostly me just, like, reading people as bisexual because that's what I do. It's my job. Yeah, I mean, I hope that helps you out. I hope there's a couple titles on there that you hadn't heard of before or didn't know had bisexual characters before.
Yeah.
I wish there was more ladies, you know? Going into the stuff that's on our Twitter thread thing that we made, we have from a regular contributor, at Rin Reads Manga. Rin asks, do you think there's a definite distinction between LGBT plus manga and BL or GL, Yuri, or there exists a blurred line between the two? I think it's blurry. Yeah, especially these days.
Yeah, I think it's important to realize that, like, BL and Yuri were so they came from the same place anyway, which was shoujo manga, and, like, girls' novels. And that now, with the establishment of LGBT manga being more, like, again, like with all manga demographics and genres, we see a lot of blurring of the lines, in that, like, one thing may feel like another demographic or whatever else. You know, we have this argument in manga spaces all the time about whether or not demographic is relevant anymore. So it, of course, that also applies to this more specific genres that are about LGBT themes, and then obviously the romance aspect of those BL and Yuri. It's very, very blurry. I do think that there's, I mean, Yuri and BL definitely still has its tropes. I think there's still an expectation that if you are reading a title that is marketed as a BL or a Yuri, you're going to find titles that you wouldn't find as LGBT manga, right? Or I guess themes, tropes that you wouldn't necessarily find in something like Our Dreams at Dusk or, My Brother's Husband or something. But more and more, as we've talked about it this whole episode, there is really not a huge distinction now that more and more creators are being able to publish their work. They are being able to, just diversify these genres. So it's, like with everything, it's an evolution, and within publishing, it's just been such a big change over the last couple of years that, I would still call a BL a BL and a Yuri. But I do think that there are, like we've said, there's a lot of BL and Yuri that could follow or fall into a more LGBT, like, representation-wise. compared to their contemporaries, which are just there for wish fulfillment or tropey, like, indulgence stuff. So yeah, that's kind of the big distinction for me. But of course, you know, there's definitely a lot of mixing of pots here. You know, everything's kind of merging into one as we go on to this, in the future.
Yeah, and I will say, and I know this is a pet peeve for you as well, Rin, but I don't like when people assume that all readers of BL and creators of BL are straight women. I think that's a big jump.
Yep.
It's, you know, a lot of the creators are queer women, are, you know, looking for, you know, representation of queerness, even if it's not queer women, within media, are interested in those subjects. And certainly, like, most of the BL readers that I know are queer, but that's also because most of the people that I know on Twitter are queer.
I feel like
we're
also,
here.
yeah, I feel also BL has always been like this entry point for mangaka. It's a very popular genre. It doesn't have to be, you know, the most beautiful artwork. It doesn't have to be a brilliant storyline. BL fans, up until very recently, would eat up whatever they could get. You could have the schlockiest, tropiest, not even very nice looking type of story, and it could get very popular. And that, for a lot of women, a lot of female mangaka, that was a very not easy way, but it was a good way to establish yourself as an artist and as a known creator before branching out into other demographics or other genres that you may be more interested in. We see this all the time. I mean, Fumi Yoshinaga was one. Junko's another one. It all the time, all the time.
Yeah, Hariko Kumota. Clamp.
There's also this idea that this is an entry point for people, and so there's so much of it, and there's not everything's going to be good. It is kind of a training ground versus some of the other genres.
Yeah.
So
I mean, let's not mince words. Most of it is absolute garbage.
Yep. Yes.
But that doesn't invalidate the good stuff that is there. That's doing cool, important things, fun things, interesting things.
And it doesn't invalidate the need for that kind of, I guess, avenue into the industry either. I think it's really important that women do have this kind of community that they can go into to support themselves and to find their voice, find themselves as an artist before going on to work on things that they may be more passionate about. Because, heck, the manga industry is not an easy place. And being a mangaka is not a fun time. So if you can get good experience in all sorts of ways, then it's nice to have that kind of fan base that, regardless if you put out something terrible, there's always going to be someone who's interested, who's going to read it.
Yeah.
You're always going to find someone to give you criticism or give you support. So...
yeah, I was going to say, just kind of as a sign of, like, how blurry it really is, the creator of Love Me For Who I Am, which we were praising earlier, does primarily draw Otoko no Ko BL. So, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
That's fine. It doesn't make them incapable of, like, drawing something that is a really good LGBT manga, you know? Next one is from @Takuto Anime Cafe. Any retrospective thoughts on Go For It Nakamura? I was kind of confused about this question because, like, is there some sort of discourse about Go For It Nakamura?
I don't know, and if there is, I don't want to know about it because I love that series.
I kind of do. Spill the tea. Spill the tea in the comments. uh, yeah, I don't have any problems with it. Is something wrong with it?
I think maybe the question is that, like, it was hugely popular when it came out. Like, it was pushed as, you know, you guys, everyone should read this regardless of if you like BL. It's fun, it's funny, it's got a great character. Maybe now that it's been, a year since, the hype has kind of, or 18 months maybe, the hype has cooled, and the new perspective that it isn't writing like this top 10 must read queer manga of all time.
I feel like my take is that despite so many people being like, read this, it's a great place to start in BL. You don't need to like BL to like it. Nobody who doesn't read BL read it.
Yeah. Yep. That's the tea right there.
That's my take. Go. What are you doing? There's literally nothing in it. It's just funny. It's slapstick comedy. And if you're going to read 37 volumes of Ranma 1/2, you can read one volume of Go For It Nakamura.
I know. Oh, yeah. Ranma, I'm watching now, and, like, man, it's fun, but, it hasn't aged well.
Like, I got through about 10 volumes before I was like, this is the same thing over and over.
Pretty much. Takahashi, you're great, but your works are far too long for what they need to be. But hey, girl, get that coin. No,
get that Eisner, girl.
Mm-mm.
Hell yeah.
Hell yes.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Nakamura's good. Yeah, also from them, same person. We have, has there been an LGBT manga that really spoke to you, and if so, why? G?
I mean, I think for me, I always attach myself to characters, and again, they're not my personal experiences, but I'm very empathetic to all people, so a lot of the times, as I said earlier, like, Wandering Sun was very much a series that I discovered and I guess learned about being transgender and, like, transgender as a thing. So that series really stuck with me. But, like, a personal, I don't know, again, like, this is maybe less LGBT, but maybe more the drama side of it. The Blue Flag definitely appealed or was very reminiscent of myself and spoke to me in a way that I hadn't seen other titles do, and other series about teens. I just feel like, you know, a lot of the stuff, I don't read things if I can't attach myself to the characters in some way. I say that. I do read some stuff that I'm like, I just want to see the world burn. But I would say maybe those two. But that's such a off the cuff answer. I can't really give anything. I'd have to really think about, like, specifics. Again, not being within the community, these aren't experiences that I've personally had, but I don't think they're any less powerful or any less meaningful. So, yeah.
Yeah. For me, there's a lot. Yeah. Which again, I am bisexual, but like I said, The Heart of Thomas probably had the most direct, like, impact. It is my second favorite manga of all time for a reason. It means a lot to me. Tropical Fish Yearns for Snow. Obviously, it's another one I talk about all the time. Because it's set in Ehime, so that's not really like an LGBT reason that it means a lot to me. But it is a Yuri manga that is set in Ehime Prefecture, which is my second home here in Japan. And it also, like, there's moments in it that just feel so, like, just true to my experience being like a high school girl. um, with awkward, crazy, messed up emotions and having to deal with, school and figuring out what you want to do for the rest of your life and juggling all the relationships, that you have in high school along with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that one's important to me. Uh, I think actually the first gay couple that I read in manga is such a weird one because everyone's like Cardcaptor Sakura or Sailor Moon.
Mm-hmm.
No, for me it was Arina Tanemura's Gentleman's Alliance Cross.
Oh my god.
Deep cut. But yeah, two of the student council members are just like, they're the beta couple and they just happen to be two guys. And they always stuck with me because I think I was super Catholic in high school and like I was in a very white and conservative area, very Christian area. Colorado Springs is where the headquarters of Focus on the Family is, so yikes. And I think that was the first time that like I'd seen like a gay relationship that was really treated with the same weight and the same dignity as like the other beta couples in the series.
Yeah.
So yeah, that one's weirdly important to me. Yeah, I guess I'll leave it at those. There's a lot of other ones, but those are the first three that kind of came to my mind. Next question would be stories on shelves at Storied Shelves. They gave us a few. We have thoughts and discussions on Yuki Kamatani's bodies of work, any series of theirs that you enjoyed and why. Love them. We already talked about them.
Love them. Give me all of their books that they've ever written in print, please. I will pay you money for someone to license it because Shonen Note, their current work, which is about a Buddha sculptor, which will never be licensed, but I want it to be. It's yeah. I need more people to yell with me about Nobari no O because I adore that series. Yeah, Yuki Kamatani, love them. Love everything they do. They're great.
Any favorite series that have LGBT plus themes or representation that one might not expect at first glance? Devil's Line.
Yes. That one.
That one.
Nobari no O as well for me. I just said it, but Nobari no O. Yeah.
I would say Devilman. Especially Crybaby. I feel like people didn't expect it to be as queer as it was going into it. But it's very queer, and that's great.
Yeah.
Maybe people do expect it now because all the memes are gay.
Well, yeah, but the only thing the old series is worth, the old anime OVAs are worth, is the memes. And so, I mean, you gotta lean into it. You gotta just, like, that's...
They're such good memes.
Yes, they are. They're hilarious.
They're so good. They're so good. Other series with queer themes. I don't know.
Again, Rose King.
Everyone knows about Blue Flag now.
Requiem of the Rose King is, I'm gonna just say that one again because I love it, and Richard's a great character.
Yeah.
Henry's a good character.
I definitely didn't know it was, like, LGBT when I first heard about it.
Yeah, it's great. And also, it's, like, crazy Shakespearean tragedy, like, overwrought, beautiful. Mwah! It's great.
Mwah, mwah. Chef's kiss, mwah.
Everything I want. Also, there's a, like, just as a singular chapter, There's a chapter of Genkaku Picasso, which is about a trans character that is, like, surprising. So that's, you know, I mean, it's a good series anyway. Check it out. But that does have unexpected queerness amongst its chapters.
I mean, there's queerness in Lychee Light Club too, but...
Yeah, that one's... Bride Story! Holy shit! That one!
Yeah.
Lesbians!
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh my god, that volume. And I haven't read the second one with them yet. But
it's not out in English yet, them. But I'm there for it. Yeah, Bride Story. I mean, so even good. In the title, it's like, oh, okay, it's about brides and marriage. It is, but also lesbians or bisexual. That's another series that may arguably have bisexuals. Those two.
Well, isn't she does really love her husband, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does, and I'm sure the other woman, she loved her husband. I mean, he just unfortunately died. And they just so happen to also love each other. So
I feel like that one's almost like a case of exploring a culture where those gray areas are not so frowned upon. Where
not so taboo.
You know, these women are more free to like explore, you know, not just feelings of friendship, but romantic feelings with another woman within the context of this sort of special sisterly bond. It's finally Kaoru Mori drawing some lesbians. There's just nothing else that I need.
Yeah. I mean, I like her head couples too, but the lesbians are always wonderful. She
because
just draws a beautiful lady.
She is a raging lesbian. Yeah, so those ones, I guess. I feel like there's like a ton of others that I'm like completely forgetting about, but we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that's enough.
I guess Story of Sai and Koku as well. Like, people don't even know that series exists, let alone that randomly one of the main characters is bi.
I mean, there's also stuff like Number 6, but I think people like go into it knowing that it's gay now, so it's not a surprise. It's just a genre style story.
That's how I feel about Blue Flag.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. We've got LGBT plus manga that you'd like to see licensed. Kanojo ni naritai kimi to boku.
That one. That one. Yeah, I can't think of anything. I'm not very good with like unlicensed works. I don't really know. I don't ever remember what's out there, so I have to rely 100% on Ray to remember. So yeah, her recommendations are usually my recommendations, or her wants or my wants.
I want Renai Joshika from Akiko Morishima. Hopefully we'll get it. If you all buy The Conditions of Paradise.
Yep.
Yeah, so I want that one as well. But, you know, there's some BLN stuff that I want, but I think the main one that's like an LGBT manga through and through would be Kimi ni Naritai. Kanojo ni Naritai Kimi to Boku, which is I Want to Be Your Girl. See, sort of unofficial fan translation of that title. And Shonen Note as well.
Yeah.
Oh, and Kaze Toki no Uta. I keep thinking of things. That one's never going to be licensed, but it is the one that I want. So, you know.
Is it France or Spain that has their release of it? They've got, like,
if you speak French or Italian, it's in Italy as well. I think. I don't remember. Anyway. Also, last one from them is any under the radar manga recommendations. I guess a lot of the ones we've been talking about. I would say Cocoon Entwined. People aren't really
Yeah.
reading that one. I like that one.
Also, like, I don't know anyone who's reading this aside from like me and maybe two other people. And this is one that, okay, this also is surprise LGBT representation is Heavenly Delusion. That at the end
Oh,
of the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
end of
I'm
first
reading that.
chapter, yeah, like complete like, oh shit, trans character who I okay. So yeah, read that one. It's really
Nice.
interesting sci-fi, like post-apocalyptic type of
Yeah, it's super
stuff.
like weird and it's very who's the Akira guy? It reminds me of him.
Yeah,
Um
Otomo. Uh,
yeah.
it's like if Akira met Parasite met like a bunch of other stuff. It's
Like a
good though.
post-apocalyptic Mad Max thing.
Mm-hmm. And yeah,
Uh
secret children,
Promise
place.
Neverland or something.
Yeah.
And in a similar vein, and also starting with Heaven, Heaven's design team would be another
Mm.
uh, secret LGBT representation.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a trans character. She's cool.
Yeah, and that's coming to print soon. So guys, get your wallets out, put your money towards it because it's a wonderful series. Um,
It's
at least
about
the four
animal facts.
animal facts, fun hijinks with angels, making animals, and why animals exist in the way that they do, like how they function
Yes.
as animals, basically. um,
Yes.
it's pretty cool. It's pretty great. So check it out.
Next we have a question from at underscore Chio underscore. We have, is there a theme that you haven't seen tackled yet, or at least tackled well or enough of? They say for them, I'd prefer to see more stories where the character already knows that they're gay or trans, etc., at the start of the story rather than only discovering it after meeting someone. Um, what about you, G?
I need to think about this one. Sorry.
All right. For me, it would be trans men.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Again, like I've been reading Yureto, and it just made me realize like how few like trans men are I've seen in
Yeah.
manga, and like the ones that I can think of are like a mess. Like there's one from Our Dreams at Dusk who's really good, um, and it's like anyone else that I think about is has a big old butt,
Mm-hmm.
you know, right
Yeah.
there. Like you've got like Toru from Tokyo Ghoul, who's a mess.
Mm.
You've got this character from Yureto, who's a mess, even though I love him. Um, you've got like Yoshino-kun from Wandering Sun, who's a
Mm-hmm.
mess. So it's like, there's not enough trans guys.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I want more.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely concur with that. I think also for me, thinking about it, I would like to see more, and again, this is kind of the antithesis of stories, but um I would like to see more established couples, and like
Mm-hmm.
people who are older, not just teens or even like young
Yeah.
adults. I mean, we already spoke about that being one of my favorite things. And what did you eat yesterday? I also really appreciate a character in Our Dreams at Dusk who is like several decades older than a majority of the rest of the cast. Um,
Yeah.
it's just nice show, like, I just think it's nice seeing people of all ages and all different points of their lives, and unfortunately we don't see that enough. Give me more
Yeah.
established slice of life gay
I think there's
queer
also a lot more
characters.
like there's a lot more issues that face older couples that come
Mm-hmm.
into play related to why gay marriage needs to be a
Yeah.
thing in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
That I feel like if your characters are young enough, you can kind of ignore all of those
Mm-hmm.
things. Um, so, things like visiting rights that, insurance things that really need to be, I think, brought to light. I think a lot of people in Japan, like, are not
Aren't,
aware enough of
yeah.
the issue to realize that
It
marriage
is an
isn't
issue.
just like a nice gesture.
Mm-hmm.
It's legal.
Yeah.
um so
And when it's done
I
well.
would also say I would like to see more queer characters who like are not falling in love for the first
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
Who like have been in other relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's true in straight stuff as well, but I feel like it's uncommon in straight romance and non-existent in
Yeah.
queer romance in manga. So yeah, I and I would like more characters who like look. There's so many like BL and stuff where they're like, I've had tons of girlfriends, but this is the first time I'm falling in love with a man,
Mm-hmm.
and they
What?
portray it as like I was straight until I met you instead of
Uh,
like, being
hey, I
like,
may be
I guess
bisexual.
I'm bisexual
Yeah. Yeah.
or pansexual. Um so like I want more stories where they actually use the word bisexual instead of being cowards. And I also want more stories where they're like, I've had tons of boyfriends before, but it's never been like this. You
Mm-hmm.
know? Don't think of being gay as like a
A
moment
one-time
that
thing,
suddenly
yeah.
comes upon you, you know, waiting in the bushes, ready to ambush.
And again, we
And
spoke about that's a good aspect of Given. It's a good aspect of it's although it's not necessarily in the story itself. It's in the dojin of what did you eat yesterday. Um,
mm-hmm.
there's yeah, not so much of it around, but more please, more please.
More, please. Um, let's see. And then our last questions are from at Sasha Story Lover. We have any new releases you're excited about? I'm assuming with LGBTQ themes. Um, what about you, G?
I'm still waiting for, well, my copy of Love Me for Who I Am. I did get it digitally, but I'm obviously also going to be getting that in print. Um, I can't really remember what else is coming out, so there's quite a few. The rest of Conditions of Paradise, I'm definitely
Yeah.
looking forward to. Um, odd little one, and maybe perhaps not strictly LGBT, but Sarazanmai, the Ryo and Mabu spin off version
Mm-hmm.
thing, whatever, as well as the original, I guess, manga. Um, there's a bunch. There's a bunch, because Seven Seas likes to give me the stuff I want. Um,
Yeah. Let's see. There's quite a lot. How Do We Relationship, I
mm-hmm.
mentioned, is coming in the mail at some point to me. um, Cherry Magic, the first volume, just came out recently. That was so cute. So I'm really looking forward to more of that. I know there's a lot. There's a lot that's coming out. But I'm dumb and I can't think of them right now. Let's see. What LGBTQ plus manga do you want to have an anime adaptation? Our Dreams at Dusk would be a really beautiful anime if they
Yeah,
like
if they put the effort
put
in, if they
effort
got a
into.
yeah, depending on the studio, depending on, I think there you could really do something beautiful with that, and if you weren't afraid to really lean into Kamatani's just
Art style,
beautiful,
yeah.
yeah, style. Um, I think
Shonen
also
Note as well, just because I want an anime about choir.
same, same, pretty much. that.
Yureto would be fun as hell as an anime. Because it's like this mystery horror thing with a spooky ghost mansion.
Ooh.
So that would be fun animated. It's just wild. Cocoon Entwined would be really beautiful too.
Yeah, again, that's very dependent on the director and the studio.
Can you imagine if like someone made an anime of Cocoon Entwined and it's like ugly flat Naruto hair?
every shot of the hair is just like a really ugly pan shot of just the ugliest shaded, like not even shaded, flat hair, and you're like, oh god, why even bother at this? It's like, see, we almost got. If you've seen Hyoka, that first episode is pretty much Cocoon Entwined, at least hair wise. All that hair metaphor visually, you want to do that.
There was a hair fetish series before that was like
yes, Severing Edge,
something or other.
Something, yeah. Severing Edge. I watched
and
it.
It's like everything in that series is so ugly except the girl's hair.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's how you gotta do Cocoon Entwined, you know? It's really, it's not about anything but hair. Like it is, but it isn't.
Yeah. Yep. I can't wait for a second season of Land of the Lustrous. I know that's not quite LGBT, but I'm keen for it. Studio Orange does great work, and their first season is brilliant.
I would be down for someone remaking Devil's Line, because that first try was a mistake.
Yeah. Who did that? I can't even remember which studio that was, but it was there was an attempt. Like, they don't even get the shitty star, like, sticker.
No, there was no attempt.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
And I mean, Blue Flag would be interesting, to say the least. I think they could do it well if they kept what was good about the manga, if they ever wanted to adapt it. But, you know.
Yeah, that one I want to see as a drama. Like,
it lends
the
itself...
vibe is so J-drama.
Yeah, it lends itself very well to live action, which is a testament to the series, because it obviously is very evocative of real life. It's not some weird anime world where people don't act like people.
I'll take anything they give us, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it doesn't suck.
Yeah. And please, someone, it's not going to happen, but I want someone to actually, like, license Wandering Sun, the show, for a disc release, because I would like to own that on disc one day. If I can't own the manga, like, I know it has its problems, but I love it. It's in a watercolor style. Like, it's such a beautiful show. And it has, you know, I just want it. And I can't rely on Crunchyroll having it forever. So, yeah.
The last question we have is, maybe you know the best places to legally read queer manga online in English. Various places, I guess.
Yeah,
There's not really like one place. Fudakiya, I guess, if you like BL.
Yeah, Fudakiya is kind of the go-to for BL right now. They have a great range. They have a great tagging system as well, so you can avoid things you don't want to read. And explicitness right, like, meter as well. So if you don't want to be reading hardcore pornography, you don't have to. But there's a lot of really wonderful titles from Dojinka, so independent, like, self-published artists, as well as very well-known popular mangaka, like Haruko Kumota. So there's a lot. Tamako has her work on there as well. So, you know, there's a lot there, but be aware that that's, you know, BL titles and BL titles only, and they're made with the intention of being BL titles, not LGBT necessarily. I mean, personally, I would say most things like Seven Seas releases and all of that are available on Amazon. I like Kindle and stuff like that. I personally use Bookwalker, which is just another digital platform that you can use on Android and I think iOS. Not sure, but it's outside of the Amazon framework if you don't want to support a squidillion dollar company in being more evil. And they have a point system there, so that's good. And all of Seven Seas, or most of Seven Seas' titles are on there, so you can find majority of the titles we've talked today about, as well as all of their Yuri, all of their like other stuff. And quite a few. The only stuff that I don't think is on there is Viz and maybe Yen Press titles. I think every like Kodansha stuff is on there, and the other titles, but. If you're wanting digital stuff for like Yen Press and Viz, I think you're either locked into Amazon, like Kindle or Comixology or whichever, which are both Amazon companies, so it makes no difference. Or, you know, their physical publications, or, I mean, none of their Viz's, like, queer stuff is on Shonen Jump, so you're not going to find it on there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's those for me. And there's like e-renta and stuff like that, but I haven't been on there enough.
If you like BL and Yuri, I mean, I guess I was just randomly recommended a title where a woman and a man run into each other on a train platform and switch genitalia.
Oh, so, yeah, I saw the ad for that too. I don't know.
I don't know what that counts as in terms of representation, but it exists in the world. If that's what you have been wanting to read, you know.
And of course, like, there's a bunch of like queer webcomics that aren't Japanese origin out there that are hosted on their own websites that are easy to find, great to read.
Yeah, I also
generally own
I
voices.
follow a lot of like Yuri artists who post their comics on Twitter. But you just have to kind of find them. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like you know, if you want to know some, you can tweet me or DM me or whatever, and I can introduce you to some. But there's a lot of artists doing interesting stuff on any social media, Twitter, Instagram.
But yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. We are slowly, you know, manga publishing has been digitizing for a long time. Not everything's available digitally. Some things are only available digitally. I know that quite a bit of Sublime's titles are digital only. June kind of exists only as a digital publisher right now, or DMP in general. So there's, you know, I think it's a smart idea.
DMP does have a Yuri imprint for doujins. I think entirely digital, so that exists.
Yeah,
as well.
But you know, it's DMP, so we don't know how great any of that is. But yeah, I mean, I haven't really read any of Tokyo Pop's like Yuri or BL aside from Starcrossed or something? I can't remember what it's called. And that one's not technically a manga, it's a Western comic.
Still Sick is cute.
But they've got a lot of stuff, and I don't know anything about it. And a lot of their stuff isn't digital, like not yet at least. So, you know, your mileage may vary on those things as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, that's at least what we know about LGBTQ manga in English. Anyone who's got other information, feel free to write in the comments. Do not write comments about where to read scans,
yeah,
those will be
deleted.
probably deleted.
Deleted.
Yeah. I mean, it's not my channel. I would delete them if they were my channel. So
They will be deleted. There's no two ways about it. So don't even try it. Don't waste your breath. So with that, I think that finished up the podcast. And next month, although it is no longer happening, next month is July, and our main theme is going to be sports manga. It was in celebration of the Olympics, but that's not happening. But there are plenty of sports series that we are going to be talking about. There's plenty out there. Lots of very interesting ones. So let us know your questions, your thoughts, again, in the comments below, or tweet at us, especially when I put out the call for questions. And again, now, if you are wanting to, you can message either myself or Ray anonymously if you are wanting a question to be asked anonymously. So yes, let us know all of your questions about sports manga, regardless of the sport, whatever you're enjoying, because there's a lot of them and there's probably a lot to talk about. So yeah. And as we mentioned in the beginning of the video, in the description below will be a bunch of links to supporting the Black Lives Matter movement and all of the various places asking for donations currently. It's obviously a huge hot button issue right now, one that's very important to both Ray and myself, and I'm sure a multitude of people, including you listeners at home. So please do donate if you can. And thank you so much for listening. I hope everyone is staying safe, happy, healthy, as much as you can be in these uncertain times. And we will talk to you next time. Bye.
Yep. Bye. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.